Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at gold. It is time for another update and we've had quite an interesting movement today. Yeah, we are 8% down, nearly 9% this week, and that is 5% today alone, and this isn't even the bottom. And we did a video already on silver. It is gold's turn to get an update, and on this chart we are looking at a much more clear structure. At least for now, we have actually even been preferring to form a reset of the current correction, unlike on the silver chart where continuation to higher prices directly would have been favorable. But nonetheless, on this chart, we are still looking at a very bullish structure, and this movement, this decline that we have seen this week, today, doesn't change anything from our primary expectations. Absolutely nothing, nada. So, for context for everyone, we are tracking within our primary interpretation probably the most bullish scenario we could, and this would imply basically a series of 1-2 setups in this area, yeah? And even here, from this larger 1-2 setup, another 1-2 setup here, another 1-2 setup here, something like that. This would allow a wave 3 to be taking place in this area, and it would imply very large extensions still to much higher prices. So basically, exactly what I was saying, this is a 1-2, 1-2, and then even internally within this wave 3, we would be looking yet at another series of 1-2 setups here, and even inside this wave 3 to the upside, we can actually go on the daily for this, we are looking at another series of 1-2 setups basically, and I could track this in a couple of ways. But this is not to overthink it. I would primarily focus on the internal structure at the moment, where we have clearly the last level of support down to $4,280, yeah? As long as we hold this level, we can still track this idea of an impulse to be taking place in this movement to the upside. And by the way, if you value having these roadmaps, these levels of support, where you know the structure has shifted to something potentially substantially quite more bearish, because if we do not form here this additional wave 5, it does have some pretty strong implications. But if you value this, I would highly recommend to subscribe, as we provide constant updates for various assets and various stocks, and we always focus on the levels to watch on this channel. Now, in this movement, we are considering this wave 3 to have a bottom in place. This is going to be our primary expectation, as long as we do not form a direct breakout within this wave 5, which is still technically possible. And in the previous video, we have been tracking extensions to higher prices within a reset, still part of this wave 4. Yeah, within a yellow interpretation, we were tracking a potential reset of an internal wave B correction. Well, the area of support we would track for a direct breakout would be exactly the same, yeah, down to $4,600, and already we can see that the break is becoming quite sustained. I do not consider this to be a likely outcome, and I find it rather likely to have a reset of this wave 4 in a more direct fashion, so this won't even be a primary expectation we will be tracking on this chart any longer. Now, you may be wondering why I am so focused on having this reset within a wave 4 here, because we did clearly already reach the area of support we were tracking. It did in fact reach the ideal target, the 38.2% retracement, and we have done so within a 3-wave pattern, which would allow, technically, the correction to be complete. And all of this is true. A corrective structure would not need to extend lower, typically, but usually within a wave 4, we would expect similar proportions with what we have in the associated wave 2 correction. And whether the bottom of the wave 2 is here, or if we want to consider the bottom to be here, in either case, it would have been much more substantial in much larger dimensions than what we have within this wave 4. And in that case, I could be looking to push directly higher. I'm not even doing predictions here, but I could be tracking a scenario that would extend directly higher. However, that would be probably still within this wave 3. Yeah, I would instead be looking for an extension to have taken place here. I would see it more than required that this wave 4 would form a larger correction. And sure, there are in-between scenarios. For example, this wave 4 could be forming a triangle in which we wouldn't require a reset. it is also technically possible to not form a lower low and still have a reset in place. That is also a valid interpretation in certain cases, but without overthinking it, typically we would see a reset of the wave 4, we would see a larger A, B, C structure take place within this pattern, within this correction in a wave 4. But again, against $4,280, we are still looking for continuation to higher prices, and as long as we are holding that, I won't even focus on the other scenarios. Now, in this structure, as we were stating clearly, in this movement, in this wave A correction, we have a 3-wave pattern. That could allow for a flat correction to be taking place here, but regardless, I would currently like to focus on the idea of a wave C to be forming. And in this expectation, we have a couple of ideas to consider. Firstly, the ideal target for a wave C is the 100% extension of the wave A. That sits roughly around, let's say, $4,260. Yeah, that is the ideal target for the wave C. Now, of course, it doesn't need to get there, and it doesn't even need to stop there, but if we get a week into that region and break briefly the area of support, that would be really no issue at all for our expectations. It would have no shift in the likelihood of this pattern succeeding in forming afterwards a wave 5 to higher prices. Now, the second idea for the wave C is that it must be a 5-wave pattern. Yeah? If we fail to build a 5-wave pattern within this wave C, I would be looking at a different type of correction, but even if we do not form a 5-wave pattern within this wave C, I would likely be looking to form an internal 5-wave pattern here within a WXY structure, where internally I would still be looking to build an ABC structure. So in either scenario, I am really focusing on continuation to lower prices. Now, the question is whether we get a large wave 4 correction, or if we get an internal wave 4 correction, yeah, a much smaller one that would allow this to be building a 5-wave pattern to the downside. And clearly, within this structure in white, overall as a wave C, we are looking at an ending diagonal, yeah? Unless we form a 3-wave pattern within this wave 3, we would need to assume that the wave C will not happen, right? Now, in terms of resistance, this is probably the most important level to watch. The level we want to see broken for a signal that an early bottom would have taken place would be $4,940. This last level of resistance remains in this spot as long as we do not form a reset of this wave 3. Yeah, if we extend to lower prices within the wave 3, I would need to drag this area of resistance along. I would need to recalculate, because this is a Fibonacci retracement, where the last level of resistance would be, but it is the 61.8% retracement, and it is still the same idea that we want to see a sustained break above this level for an indication that a bottom is in place, yeah? Unless we see that, we would need to assume that it is still possible to extend within a wave 5. Now, the minimum level would be the $4,670. That is the minimum level we would expect to reach within a wave 4 correction. But on top of that, we would also expect similar proportions with what we had in this wave 2. So as this wave 2 correction took like what? Like a week, 5 days, something like that, we would expect something similar within a wave 4, yeah? Possibly something longer. It isn't uncommon for the wave 4 to be slightly longer, but that is the overall expectation. Now, in this wave 3 to the downside, I do not have any confirmation at this point that we have a bottom in place. I am only really looking to build a 3-wave pattern in this structure. So I'm looking at an ABC movement, yeah, something like this could be taking place. I could technically even consider the wave B to have been a triangle, and have here instead a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 to complete the wave C. That is a perfectly valid interpretation. And I will be looking for potential extensions to lower prices within this idea. But just to be clear, I do not need this structure to extend to lower prices to be able to consider a bottom to be in place. Yeah, I can track this as an A, B, C structure, where in the wave C we have something like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. Yeah, it is possible and perfectly valid for the wave 5 to be the largest wave, the strongest wave. It does happen, especially within such drops. Now, if we manage to break here above the 50% retracement, we would be able to look much more favorably for the idea of a large wave 4 correction taking place, as that would be evidence that a bottom would be in within this large wave 3, and the idea of an extension will be tracked here in the yellow interpretation, where in this wave 4, the ideal target is the 38.2% retracement, which has been perfectly touched within a 3-wave pattern. So this is actually kind of a warning sign that we might have already formed a top within a wave 4 in this structure, and a wave 5 could already be building to lower prices. Now, to be clear, other types of structures are certainly possible, but those are the most important scenarios to track in my opinion. At the moment, I wouldn't focus on all the different possible interpretations. I'd focus on looking for a possible extension in this yellow scenario, or I will be looking for the larger wave 4 in white. Yeah, if we form other patterns, we can come back and reassess the data, but as it stands right now, I believe it's best to focus on the larger time frame, wait for some evidence, and as I was saying, until we actually break above the 61.8% retracement. There is no strong indication that a bottom would be in place, and extensions to lower prices would be even ideal. One more idea I will leave you with before we end the video. Here at the 50% retracement perfectly, we have this structural support level, yeah? We have formed here a decently sized correction within an internal structure before creating a massive extension to much higher prices. This is expected to help in forming a more substantial bottom within this region. But for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoy our content and want to support us directly, check out our channel membership, and as a thank you for any of these actions, I would like to invite you to sign up to our channel newsletter, where you get access to our monthly top picks, where we identify for you high quality structures. The link for sign up is in the description, and it is completely free. And other than that, let me know what else you would like me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.